Hi developers, in this video I will show you how HTTP headers and HttpParams classes works. So both HTTP headers and HttpParam classes are used to configure HTTP requests in Angular, but they serve different purposes. Coming to HTTP headers, it allows you to send additional metadata to the API like authentication tokens or content types. So we use HTTP headers for metadata about the request. Coming to HttpParams, they are used to add query string parameters to the request, such as filters or pagination. Okay, so we need to use HttpParams for modifying the URL with the query parameters. Okay, so let's check it in the code. So this is the code we have written in earlier videos for the HTTP client. So here what we have done, we are fetching the users from this URL and displaying it in the UI. Okay, so let's run this code, how it is looking. Okay, so it is looking like this. Let's inspect it. Let's run it again. So this is the users API. Let's check it in the code. You can say this API is calling users API. So this is the request URL. Okay, request method is get, status code is 200. So now let's check. We have response headers and request headers in the header section. Okay, currently there are no query parameters here. So using request params, we can add query parameters here in the URL. Okay, and these are denoted by question mark. After that, we will pass the key value pairs. These are the response headers, and this is the request headers. So this request headers we can manipulate it using HTTP request. Okay, so we can manipulate it using the HTTP headers. Okay, so now let's create an HTTP params. This is the URL. After that, we can create HTTP params. Okay, so how to create it? Const. After creating, we can place it in an variables name params. Okay, so first let's firstly create HTTP headers. Okay, and we will place it in the headers. Okay, so new HTTP headers. Okay, so we need to import it. It is imported automatically. Okay, from Angular common HTTP. Okay, so here we can change the content type to application /XML. So we can see currently what is the content type. Let's go to request headers. Okay, so see here what is the content type. So currently content type is not there. Okay, so here we can pass the content type also. We are passing content type as application XML. So after that, if we run the build, we can see that content type there. Okay, so we have what we have done. We have set the content type. Okay, so now another thing what we can set. We can set authorization. Let's see authorization is there or not. As we can see, authorization is also not there. We can pass it in the headers. Authorization. Let's see. So basically we pass the token here, bearer token. So bearer, we can write sample token. It can be replaced by the original token. Okay. Now let's create HTTP params. We have created the HTTP headers. Okay, so firstly let's run it. How is it coming or not? Let's go to users, the request headers. Let's run the code again. It is showing any error. Okay, we need to pass it here after the API URL. What we need to pass? We need to pass the headers which we have created. Okay, now let's run the code. Okay, let's go to the browser. Let's check in the users API. So we can see authorization bearer sample token, it is coming, and content type application/XML, it is also coming. Okay, which we have passed from here. Okay, so now let's create HTTP params. Create HTTP params. Const params is equals to new HTTP params. Okay, it will be imported. Okay, so let's do the pagination. Okay, so new HTTP params dot set page 1. Okay, so what we have done, we have set the query parameters for the pagination. Sample query parameter for pagination. Okay, we can set limit also. Dot set limit. Let's make it to 10. So what it has done, it will limit the results. Limit the results sent in the URL. Okay, so now we can pass it in the while making the HTTP GET request params. Okay, now let's see the code in the UI. So as we can see, the query parameters are attached to the request URL page 1 and limit is equals to 10. Okay, which we passed from here. Here we have set the page 1 and limit 10. Okay, and we have passed it in the while making the HTTP GET request. So this is the example of HTTP headers and HTTP params.